If you're feeling lonely and isolated because you've stepped onto planet grief and everybody else seems to be on planet Christmas and party time, know this. What you're experiencing is totally normal and it's okay to feel exactly as you are. Hey, I'm Tanya Wilkinson and this is Death on the Daily. Far from being a Merry Christmas, for us grievers, this time of year can feel like a griefy Christmas. And if you're feeling like Christmas might just break you, or like it's a mountain that you don't know how you're going to be able to climb it, you're not alone. And I'm here to, hand on my heart, share my own personal experience of navigating 2 Christmases now since the death of our daughter, as well as my SOS Christmas survival guide. These are practical tips to help you to feel resourced, to put yourself first, to move forwards with boundaries and conditions for you to thrive at this time of year. With the festive season upon us and the holidays fast approaching, I just want to start this episode with an invitation to you to just meet yourself exactly where you are this Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever else that you're celebrating. Because I know in my own grief journey that each Christmas brings its own little flavor of grief. And I know that there are points of this time of year that are just so tender and so painful for me to bear. And if you leave this episode with anything, I just want you to leave it with a huge dose of grace and compassion for yourself. Because navigating any time of year can be really, really hard for us grievers, let alone a time of year that's all about us coming together as families, celebrating, and those moments that can really spotlight the loss of the person you love who's no longer here. Or, like in my case, the loss and the gaping hole of not having my daughter here with me, who I so long to bring into this world. And right now to be telling her all about Santa Claus and hyping up all of the excitement in this household. And first up, I thought it was really important to acknowledge the complexity of, well, this time of year, but also of grief in general. And each of our grief is unique to us. It's as unique as our fingerprint. And there is no right and there is no wrong way to grieve. But that can be really complicated at a time of year where we feel like we're under a lot of pressure to be really joyful, to show up socially, to plaster a smile on our face and be celebrating. The thing is that grief doesn't follow any calendar, and it definitely doesn't take any holidays off, particularly in my experience. It doesn't take holidays when we most need it to take holidays. It has a habit of surfacing its head at just really random and sometimes very inconvenient times. And if you're really missing that person or that pet, if family dynamics, social dynamics, or anything else about this time of year feels really tender and really difficult, if you're feeling lonely and isolated because you've stepped onto planet grief and everybody else seems to be on planet Christmas and party time, know this. What you're experiencing is totally normal and it's okay to feel exactly as you are. Meet yourself where you are in any given moment. And that's what this podcast, Death on the Daily, really is all about. It's meeting us each and every single day in our grief, in what's coming up for us, honoring that and understanding how can I best care for myself today. And we'll come on to that in my SOS tips for your Christmas survival. So give yourself permission to feel exactly what you're feeling. There's no judgment here. Just meet yourself exactly where you are. And take the pressure off yourself to feel merry or to feel anything other than exactly how you feel. And sometimes I find it's really powerful to name exactly how I'm feeling, whether that's to myself or to someone who I trust, who I know I can be just open and honest about my grief with. And for me, that's definitely my husband. Definitely got some also brilliant friends who are just in my life and who I can say, I feel sad. And they will respond, or I'll respond to myself. And that's okay. So let's look at some Christmas survival strategies. And actually, when I say survival, I also want to say for survival and also so that we can thrive. Because I truly believe that when we listen to our grief, when we understand what our grief is spotlighting in our life, that we need those conditions for us to thrive. And then we take action from there. that it's not just about on our hands and knees surviving through grief. And don't get me wrong, there's been many points in my grief where that's exactly what I felt like I'm just about doing. But I also believe that through us being present with our grief, that actually we can cultivate the conditions for us to thrive. So let's look at some strategies to help you to survive and to thrive this Christmas. Hello, beautiful friend. If you're watching this, then I'm guessing that it might be because you're grieving. And you might be like many of the grievers who I support through my grief coaching, as well as people who I speak to on the daily who say to me, T, I don't have time to grieve. I can't find the space in any month to be able to be with my grief. And that's why I've created Grief Cocoon, a brand new monthly live event that happens online so you can tune in from your own grief cocoon at home. And cocooning is really important in our grief. When we are present with our grief, when we allow space for us to tend to our grief through ritual, through nervous system support and care, through reflection like journaling, all of which we're going to be doing in the grief cocoon. It enables us, like that little caterpillar, to go into our cocoon and to support our transformation and our emergence on the other side as that butterfly who's integrated grief as a part of our story. If you want to join us for the next Grief Cocoon event, then head to the show notes and all of the details are there. So first up, we've got setting boundaries. And boundaries are basically setting the terms and conditions so that we can thrive, so that we can honor ourselves, so that we can support ourselves, so that we can support our health and our well-being and our energy levels during this festive period. And there's a quote from Prentice Hemphill that I absolutely love, which is, boundaries are the conditions at which I can love you and me simultaneously. And that quote just says it all for me, because actually when we honor ourselves, we also can honor those around us by being able to show up as our best self. And boundaries can be where it might be setting them with well-meaning friends and family who want to see heaps and heaps of you, but actually you're connecting into your energy levels, you're connecting into your grief, you're connecting into those needs for time alone, time in your grief cocoon. And actually it's okay for you to say, do you know what? This Christmas, I'm going to be spending a lot more time on my own. Or this Christmas, I'm only going to come to stay over Christmas for 1 or 2 days instead of 3 or 4 that I normally would do. Or this Christmas, I'll come to the party, but I'm going to leave after about an hour. Boundaries can also mean saying no to certain situations. And I know personally for me in my journey with the grief for my daughter, how difficult it is for me to be in certain family situations, for example, where my cousin had a baby who was born 5 months after the due date for my daughter. It is incredibly, incredibly painful as well as joyful for me to spend time with them, because it's always going to give me a spotlight on my daughter and my grief and the fact that she's not here. So for me, some of the boundaries that I've put in at different times when my grief has been roaring is being able to say my sacred no to going along to certain things with family, to go to certain things with friends, when actually I know that for me, it's all about cocooning in my grief. And then it's about peeping my nose out of that cave and saying, okay, I feel resourced. I feel in a really good place to connect into you, your baby, and to feel the full force of the joy of being around you all. When I work with my grief coaching clients, other boundaries that we can set that could be really simple and can really help to stop a really big griefy energy drain can also be looking at what group chats that we're in. Any of those spaces where there's just all of this sort of merry chatter of noise, or where we're feeling that pressure to show up and to be our most jolly self. And we live in a world where we're conditioned to be unboundaried, where we're conditioned to see boundaries as selfish. And I'm here to tell you that boundaries are not selfish. Creating the conditions so that you can be fully resourced, fully supported, where you can feel like you're able to thrive in any situation, including when you're moving forwards with that roar of grief. That is okay to set those boundaries. That is not selfish. Centering you is the very best thing that you can do, because then it means that you're going to be able to show up as your most authentic self in this world. You are worthy of these boundaries. So here's a tip for you. It's something that I advise all of my clients when we're talking about boundaries to do. And that's to not put pressure on ourselves to think of boundaries in the moment. It's to plan in advance. If you're going to that social occasion and you're really, really feeling the grief, whether that's for a parent, for a sibling, for a friend, for a child, plan in advance your escape route. Plan in advance how long you're going to stay. And if you have someone who's going with you, or if you have a trusted friend at that gathering, get them in on your plan, have them there to hold you accountable, because I know too well from my own personal experience how my people pleasing can kick in. And then before I know it, I'm masking the night away and suddenly it's midnight and I'm still at this party and inside I'm just feeling awful. Our strategy number 2 is building your support bubble. We humans are built on connection. We are built on being supported and uplifted by others. We thrive in not just self-care, but in community care. So identify who your trusted people are this Christmas. It might be people in your family. It could be friends. It could be your pets. It could be anyone. It could also be that there might be some support groups that you could find locally where actually turning up, you might find some beautiful connections with whom you can talk with, maybe connect with on messages and lean on each other for support. And what's really important here is for us to communicate what we want. How can we be best supported? And I know how it can feel when 2 weeks after the funeral, everybody disappears and they never talk about your loss and your grief ever again. And that can be so, so hard. So I also want to share this one with an invitation that if you have someone in your orbit who's grieving, maybe just check in with them and say, I know that this time of year is difficult for a lot of grievers. If there's anything that I can do to help, maybe could I give them a little menu? Could I check in with you every day through this festive period? Would it be supportive if we go and I buy you a cup of coffee or buy you a pizza and we talk about it, or we go for a walk? Would it be helpful to have someone who you don't have to be cheery around, who you can just bawl your eyes out or swear about what's happened if you want to? That's how we can support others. But if you're grieving, really do identify who's that 1, 2, maybe more people who you can just be real with, who you can say to them, hey, you know what would be really helpful for me this Christmas, because in truth, I am really feeling my grief, is if you just popped up every few days with a little message or a funny emoji or anything, or I need some distractions. It can be anything that you want. There is, again, a uniqueness to our grief. And so therefore, there is a uniqueness through your grief and also your personal preferences to how you want to be supported this Christmas. Strategy 3, we've got creating new rituals. Rituals are so, so powerful for us in helping us to process our grief, in helping us to just find these little moments of meaning-making connection, of a continuation of our bonds to our loved one. So I want to start here by saying that if there are any new traditions, any new rituals that you want to bring in at this time of year to honor your loved ones, then go for it. Get creative, get crafty, and do something that might just give them a seat at your Christmas table, for example. And I'm actually doing just that this year. Hadn't thought about it before this year, but I was thinking that, and if you see just over here, I've got my little candle that is burning, and that is in my tea light holder for my daughter, Ngako Rayona. It's actually a gift from a dear friend, Kelly. She actually dropped it off on our doorstep a few days after she died. And for me, I was thinking, what do I want to do this year? And I actually want my daughter, as well as my granddad, who died 3 years ago, and my 2 grandmothers, who died just this last September, only 6 days apart. I want them all to be present this Christmas at the Christmas table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decorate that tea light holder, and then I'm going to get 3 more tea light holders to decorate for my grandparents. Actually, 4. I'm going to decorate one for my Apapa, my Sri Lankan granddad, who died 6 months after I was born. So I'm going to get crafty. I'm going to be decorating them. I might just do a video on this channel showing me doing that. And then on Christmas Day, I'm going to make sure that there's a candle in each of those tea light holders, that those lights are lit for those who I love so dearly so that they can have a seat at our family table. But also in the sphere of rituals and traditions, it's really important to say that actually we can often cling onto traditions of the past. And I had a guest on my podcast last Christmas. Her name is Lou Nylander. She founded the Wildflowers of London, and she shared so powerfully permission to rip up the rule book at Christmas. If you feel called to chuck all of the festive traditions out of the window, permission to do that, permission to create new traditions that serve and honor you. And I also wanted to mention a really important point when it comes to grieving those at Christmas, that actually sometimes our grief is for people who we didn't have great relationships with, where there was harm, where there was trauma, where there was disconnection, where there was just general apathy. And actually, within this ripping up the rule book on Christmas, it also can be an invitation as well to let go of things, of connections, of aspects of past tradition that actually are rooted again in things that we just can say, do you know what? Given where I'm at right now and given my relationship with them, I'm totally okay to let this go right now. So I really wanted to make mention of that because I'm always very conscious that actually I talk about my grief from a space of the deepest of my love, particularly for my daughter. But actually that for some of us, grief can be difficult from the perspective of difficult relationships, and perhaps there not being a lot of love there. So get creative, do whatever feels aligned to you, whether you want a moment to bring in the light of a candle, a little spark of joy, of play, of fun, of meaning, or a moment where actually you can sit in your sadness and it invites you to bawl your eyes out and to really feel the person who you're missing. Always remembering that you can get to decide what Christmas looks and feels like. Strategy 4 is making your self-care non-negotiable. And I know that this time of year, we can feel like we're sprinting from one social thing to another, to family things. It can be full on. But actually, particularly when we're grieving, we really do need to root down into our self-care. We need to find those little sacred moments, even 5 or 10 minutes at a time, where we can just cocoon, get under a blanket, where we can have a lovely bath or a shower and just feel the warmth of the water on our skin, where we can step out into nature, take a few breaths, where we can journal, where we can indulge ourselves, not in the way that we think of Christmas overindulgence from the food and the drink and everything else, although that is lovely, but where we can really indulge and pamper ourselves and our body. And these practices are not just good for our mind and body and spirit well-being, but also they're really powerful to bring us back into presence. Because actually at a time of year where there are so many distractions and when we can really get stuck in our doing, that can be not so great for us when we're grieving, and particularly when we have the tendency, which I definitely do, to flip into go, 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 do mode to effectively numb out on how I'm really feeling. So check in with your body, whether you can do that every day or maybe just once a week, on what you really need to give yourself. What nourishment can you gift yourself this holiday season? And know that those small doses of kindness, whether that's daily, whether that's every other day, they add up, they multiply up into your greater presence, your greater well-being, and just you being able to fully listen to and tend to your grief and the care that you need in any one day. And finally, strategy 5 is embracing imperfection. Now, we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves at Christmas to make it perfect. We can have expectations that are right up here. But remember that Christmas, just as any day in life, it's not about perfection. In fact, perfection doesn't even exist. It's just not a thing. We are all perfectly imperfect human beings. That was actually a lesson that my daughter taught me. because her birth defect and how perfectly imperfect she was, and how I got to see that with my own eyes when I got to hold her after her stillbirth. She's really taught me that actually in this life, it's not about striving for perfection. It's about working on more presence, more joy, more meaning, more care. That's what's most important. So permission to lower the bar this Christmas. Permission to show up exactly as you. Permission to show up with all of your grief, with your tiredness, if that's what you're feeling. Permission to show up with any tears. Permission to let go of any of that perfection. And try to let go of any of those shoulds. I know when I look at, particularly at my mum, because she always wants to cook everything, and she will literally do that when she's grieving, when she's feeling exhausted. She wants to show up. Food is definitely her love language. But actually permission to not have to do that. Permission to buy some stuff from the shops and just put it out. Permission to not have to attend every single party. Permission to not have to feel joyful and jolly all of the time. Permission to sneak off and go get some naps as and when you need them. Knowing that you are enough. Your presence is enough. And also knowing, circling back to that community point, that community care in our grief is essential. So also know that you can always reach out to others to support you in your grief. So that completes this episode of Death on the Daily and my SOS toolkit to help you to survive this griefy Christmas. And before I complete this episode with my note to self, I just want to spotlight a monthly event that I am launching, which I'm so excited about. It's called the GRIEF COCOON. It's a sacred space where we meet each month. It's going to be for 90 minutes. It's all online, so you can zoom in from anywhere in the world. And there's going to be a replay as well available. And we're going to meet in ritual, in journaling, in connection. And what this is really about is giving you sacred space each month for you to be able to cocoon. This December is the first one. So if you're gearing up for a griefy Christmas and you want to cocoon together, head to the show notes to find out the date of the first one. And I end each episode with a note to self. And I've written my note to self today basically as something I need to tell myself every single day this Christmas, particularly for me as definitely someone who has a tendency to overgive and overextend myself. My note to self is this: I will honor my feelings. I will set boundaries, and I will show myself the same kindness that I give to others this Christmas and beyond. So that completes this episode of Death on the Daily. And whatever you're journeying with as we head towards this maybe not so festive time of year for you, know that it's okay. Know that Death on the Daily, we're always here. This is your non-judgmental grief space. Know that I've got other events and spaces where you can be held in your grief. And if this episode resonated with you, I would love, love, love if you could hit that subscribe button. It really helps me to get this word out about my podcast. And it also means that you will never miss an episode of this pod. And wherever you are in your grief journey, and whatever griefy Christmas is going to flow through for you, know that I'm sending you all of my solidarity and all of my love. Thank you for joining me on Death on the Daily. If you liked this episode, it would mean a lot if you could hit subscribe. Plus, head to the show notes to find out about my work as a grief coach, and there's a grief journaling freebie there for you. Until we meet here next time, take good care of yourself and others.
There's a cold fire, there's a crossfire, and there's something